My boss called me a useless nigger in front of the entire team. So the next day, I decided to do something no one expected. Detroit, Michigan. Winter 2019. Marcus Johnson was 34 when his life changed forever. It wasn't in a moment of glory. It was in a moment of pain so deep he could barely breathe. It was a typical Tuesday at Johnson & Associates, an accounting firm in the heart of Detroit's financial district. Marcus had worked there for 7 years. 7 years waking up at 5:30 a.m., 7 years taking 2 buses across town. 7 years proving his worth, day after day. But that day would be different. The meeting began as usual. Cold coffee, printed reports, and the smell of ambition mixed with cheap deodorant. Marcus presented the project he had developed alone over 3 months, a tax-saving system that could save the company more than $2 million a year. His hands were shaking as he held the projector remote, not from nerves, from excitement. As you can see on slide 47, Marcus pointed to graphs he had created, each line representing hours worked at night, sacrificed weekends, missed birthdays for his daughter. That's when Richard Thornton, the CEO, interrupted him. Marcus, stop. The room fell silent instantly. 12 pairs of eyes turned. Marcus froze. I'm not going to waste any more time on this, Thornton continued, his voice cutting through the air like a cold blade. Do you really think anyone here is going to implement the ideas of A? He paused carefully, his blue eyes fixed on Marcus, a useless black guy who can barely show up on time? The world stopped. Marcus heard muffled laughter. He saw Jennifer from accounting look at the floor. He watched David, his supposed friend, pretend to be on his phone. He felt every molecule of oxygen being sucked from the room. But what no one saw was a spark that ignited inside Marcus at that moment. It wasn't anger. It was something much more dangerous. It was clarity. What would you do if your dignity was stolen in front of everyone? Marcus had 24 hours to decide between surrender or becoming unforgettable. Read on to discover the choice that would change not only his life, but the fate of everyone in the room. Marcus didn't sleep that night, but it wasn't because of the tears. It was because something ancient had awakened within him. Sitting in the kitchen of his small East Side apartment, he opened his laptop, not to update his resume, not to write a dramatic resignation letter. He did something he learned from his grandfather, a man who survived the Great Depression and taught Marcus something crucial. Son, rich people don't get rich by making more money. They get rich by understanding the game. Marcus began to calculate. Annual salary, $67,000. Monthly expenses, $3,200. Current savings, $8,400. Pathetic by American standards, where the dream is always to spend more, appear richer, impress more people who don't care about you. But Marcus remembered a story his grandfather used to tell about the German immigrants who arrived in Detroit in the 1950s. They had a different philosophy, an almost unhealthy obsession with saving, not out of greed, for freedom. The Germans I knew, his grandfather said, saved 50% of their income. They lived in small houses while Americans bought mansions. They drove old cars while their neighbors changed theirs every year. And you know what happened? 30 years later, they owned the companies they worked for. Marcus took out a notebook and began to write the silent plan. Month 1 to 6. Cut expenses by 60%. Month 7 to 12. Invest every penny you save. Year 2, double investments. Year 3, buy a stake in a company or start your own. It was insane. It was impossible. It was necessary. That night, Marcus made decisions that his friends would consider crazy. Canceled Netflix, Spotify, and all streaming services, $47 per month. Dropped premium cell phone plan, $85 per month saved. Sold his car, that 2015 Dodge Charger that made him feel good, and went back to busing for $150 per month in payments plus $180 in gas and insurance. Moved from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 30-square-meter studio, $700 per month saved. Stopped eating out completely, $320 per month. Total save per month, $1,782. His friends thought he had gone mad. Man, you're regressing, his friend Jason said the following weekend, over cheap beer at a midtown bar. You sold your car? In Detroit, the car city? Trevor, another friend, shook his head in disbelief. Marcus just smiled. He had learned something few Americans understand: the difference between looking rich and being free. Seneca's German philosophy on American soil. Marcus began studying obsessively. He discovered his intuition had a name: German Stoicism applied to finance. Modern Germans save, on average, 11% of their income, more than double that of Americans' 5%. But the German financial elite, they save between 40 and 60%. Why? Marcus found the answer in Seneca, the Roman Stoic philosopher whom, interestingly, post-war German immigrants studied religiously. Wealth is a slave of the wise man and the master of the fool. It wasn't about greed. It was about control. As Marcus took 2 buses to work, he saw colleagues getting into financed audits. They looked rich, but Marcus was becoming free. Each morning at 5:30, while waiting for the 16 bus at the corner of Grand River Avenue, he would review his numbers. Week 1 after the incident, asterisk. Economy, $421. Investment in S&P 500 index fund, $421. Feeling, constant hunger, but unwavering determination. Week 4 asterisk. Cumulative savings, $1,847. Investments, $1,847. A colleague asked if he was sick because he lost weight. I'm fine. Month 3 asterisk. Total savings, $5,683. Richard Thornton passed him in the hallway. Without saying anything, Marcus smiled. Perfect. What no one in the office knew was that Marcus was building something invisible but unbeatable: moral and financial capital. He arrived earlier than everyone else. He left later, not out of loyalty to the company, but because every extra hour meant learning, connections, and information. Marcus began to realize something the wealthy have always known. Insider information doesn't come from inside boardrooms. It comes from being invisible enough for people to speak in front of you. And as a useless black man, he had become invisible. Marcus was saving $1,782 a month on a $67,000 salary. Impossible? Read on to discover the German extreme savings method that works even in the U.S. and how it became a secret weapon. 6 months after the incident, Marcus had $11,347 invested. Doesn't that sound like a lot? For someone who made $67,000 a year, saving almost $12,000 in 6 months while living in Detroit was extraordinary. But it wasn't just about money. It was about psychological transformation. Marcus discovered something that would change his life forever: the difference between greed and financial security. Greed versus security, the lesson nobody teaches. In America, we're taught that wanting money is greed, that obsessive saving is avarice, that living below your means is pathetic. But Marcus began studying Detroit's truly wealthy. Not those who drove mortgage Teslas, but those who own entire city blocks. He discovered a pattern. The average $70,000 per year American asterisk spends $5,800 per month, saves $250 per month, lives worried about bills. A $1,000 emergency destroys you. Work for money all your life. This is greed disguised as living life. The financially obsessive $70,000 per year German asterisk spends $2,500 per month, saves $3,300 per month. Live with purpose, not appearance. Have 6 to 12 months of emergency supplies saved. Makes money work for him. This is safety disguised as frugality. The difference? Greed is wanting to look rich now. Safety is being free afterwards. Marcus understood that Americans constantly confuse the two. They call anyone who saves $3,000 a month greedy. But they don't see greed in spending $5,000 they don't have on a lifestyle they can't afford. The Berlin Method in Detroit. Marcus created a system he called the Berlin Method, a combination of Seneca's Stoicism with post-war German financial discipline. Rule 1. Economy is not deprivation. IT is prioritization. Americans say, "You only live once, enjoy it." Germans think, "You only live once, don't be a slave." Marcus cut out all passive entertainment. No paid video or music streaming. 0 restaurants. Learn to cook $2 meals. 0 impulse purchases. 0 new clothes for 18 months. But invested heavily in books on finance, accounting, investments, $40 per month. Online market analysis course, $99 one time. Free gym at work. Health equals savings. Rule 2. Time is the most valuable asset. While colleagues watched Netflix for 3 hours a night, Marcus studied financial statements from Detroit's biggest companies. While friends were at happy hours, $50 to $80 a night. Marcus was at the public library learning about private equity. Marcus calculation. 3 hours per day times 365 days equals 1,095 hours per year. This is equivalent to 27 weeks of full-time work. It's having a second job of knowledge, free of charge. Rule 3. Invisibility is strategy. Seneca wrote, "It is easier to exclude evils than to keep them under control." Marcus applied this socially. Stopped trying to impress colleagues. Wore the same 3 shirts in rotation. I took my lunch in an old Tupperware container. I drove nothing. I rode the bus. Result? He became invisible. And in invisibility, he observed everything. What Marcus discovered being invisible. Month 8 after the incident, something extraordinary happened. Marcus was in the company break room, eating his lunch of chicken, rice, and broccoli, the same meal as always, when Richard Thornton walked in with James Peterson, a prominent investor. They didn't even notice Marcus in the corner. "James, I'm telling you, we have a serious cash flow problem." Thornton said quietly, but not quietly enough. "We need $800,000 by March, or we'll have to lay off half the staff." "What about that tax savings project? The one you mentioned?" Peterson asked. "Oh, that?" Thornton laughed uncomfortably. It was a junior employee's idea. Interesting on paper, but impossible to implement. Marcus almost choked. That project, the project he had presented on the day of his humiliation, the project that could save $2.1 million a year. At that moment, Marcus understood 3 things. 1. Richard Thornton had stole his idea. 2. He didn't have the expertise to implement it. 3. The company was on the verge of bankruptcy, and Marcus had $11,347 invested, growing 7 to 9% per year in the market. But most importantly, he had the knowledge the company needed. The German obsession with documentation. Here comes a genius of the German philosophy that Marcus had adopted. Germans document everything, not for bureaucracy, for protection. Marcus had all 847 pages of the original project, 127 emails exchanged about development, 34 timestamps of when you worked on the project, witnesses who could confirm authorship, emails where Richard complimented the work before stealing it. Everything stored in 3 places: cloud, external HD, and physical copy. But Marcus hasn't done anything yet, because he understood something Seneca taught 2,000 years ago. Revenge that is delayed is the revenge that hurts the most. Month 12, the turning point. A year after the incident, Marcus had $23,891 invested. Certification in advanced financial analysis. Network of contacts in 3 accounting firms. Job offer with 30% raise, which he refused. And a plan. He realized something that changed everything. He didn't want revenge. He wanted justice. And more than that, he wanted freedom. The difference? Revenge is emotional, short-lived, and keeps you stuck in the past. Justice is strategic, permanent, and frees you for the future. Marcus began phase 2 of his plan. Phase 2, from saving to investing strategically. With nearly $24,000 saved, Marcus did something unusual by American standards, but perfectly normal to the German mentality. He waited. While Americans invest impulsively, Germans wait for the perfect opportunity. Marcus knew Richard Thornton was desperate. The company was losing $150,000 a month. Within 6 months, they would be bankrupt. But Marcus didn't have enough capital to buy the company. Yet, So he did something brilliant. He started building the alternative, the side project. Nights and weekends, Marcus developed something extraordinary, a financial consulting firm specializing in tax savings for mid-sized businesses. Nome, Phoenix Financial Solutions. Initial investment, $3,500. Clients, 0. Potential, unlimited. He used $3,500 of his $24,000 to register the company, $800. Create professional visual identity, $400. Flawless website, $1,200. Additional certifications, $600. Initial marketing, $500. His friends thought he had completely lost his mind. Marcus, you have a stable job. Why start a company? Jason almost shouted. Because stable employment is an illusion, Marcus replied calmly. Financial security doesn't come from a boss. It comes from having options. This is pure German philosophy. Post-war Germans learned the hard way. You can lose everything overnight. Your job, your home, your country. The only real security is having multiple sources of income and equity. Marcus had a year of brutal savings, $20,000 invested in a secret company. But what he did next shocked everyone and turned humiliation into empire. Read on to discover the moment that changed everything. Part 4, The Silent Checkmate. March 2021. 2 years after the incident, Marcus sat in the same cheap cafe where he drank black coffee every morning. $1.25. No sugar, no milk. Pure and bitter, like his journey. Your phone rang. Marcus Johnson? The voice was professional, cold. Try. This is Sandra Chun from the legal department at Johnson & Associates. We need to speak to you urgently. Marcus's heart raced. About your job. Can you come to the office in an hour? Marcus smiled. He had waited 2 years for this call. I'll be there in 45 minutes. What happened behind the scenes? Phase 2, from saving to investing strategically. With nearly $24,000 saved, Marcus did something unusual by American standards, but perfectly normal to the German mentality. He waited. While Americans invest impulsively, Germans wait for the perfect opportunity. Marcus knew Richard Thornton was desperate. The company was losing $150,000 a month. Within 6 months, they would be bankrupt. But Marcus didn't have enough capital to buy the company yet, so he did something brilliant. He started building the alternative, the side project. Nights and weekends, Marcus developed something extraordinary, a financial consulting firm specializing in tax savings for mid-sized businesses. Nome, Phoenix Financial Solutions. Initial investment, $3,500. Clients, 0. Potential, unlimited. He used $3,500 of his $24,000 to register the company, $800. Create professional visual identity, $400. Flawless website, $1,200. Additional certifications, $600. Initial marketing, $500. His friends thought he had completely lost his mind. Marcus, you have a stable job. Why start a company? Jason almost shouted. Because stable employment is an illusion, Marcus replied calmly. Financial security doesn't come from a boss. It comes from having options. This is pure German philosophy. Post-war Germans learned the hard way. You can lose everything overnight. Your job, your home, your country. The only real security is having multiple sources of income and equity. Marcus had a year of brutal savings, $20,000 invested in a secret company. But what he did next shocked everyone and turned humiliation into empire. Read on to discover the moment that changed everything. Part 4, The Silent Checkmate. March 2021. 2 years after the incident, Marcus sat in the same cheap cafe where he drank black coffee every morning. $1.25. No sugar, no milk. Pure and bitter, like his journey. Your phone rang. Marcus Johnson? The voice was professional, cold. Try. This is Sandra Chun from the legal department at Johnson & Associates. We need to speak to you urgently. Marcus's heart raced. About your job. Can you come to the office in an hour? Marcus smiled. He had waited 2 years for this call. I'll be there in 45 minutes. What happened behind the scenes? What Marcus didn't know but suspected was that Johnson and Associates was in complete collapse. Richard Thornton had tried to implement Marcus's project, that tax saving system, but without the necessary technical knowledge. The result? $480,000 tax miscalculation. Federal audit initiated. 3 important clients lost. Ongoing legal proceedings. Company with 60 days to bankruptcy. Sandra Chun, the lawyer, had a desperate proposal. When Marcus entered the meeting room, there were 5 people. Sandra Chun, attorney. Richard Thornton, visibly exhausted. James Peterson, the investor. 2 board members. Richard couldn't look Marcus in the eye. Mr. Johnson, Sandra began formally, we appreciate your presence. Let's get straight to the point. The company needs your expertise to correct irregularities in the tax system we have implemented. Marcus remained silent. We are prepared to offer a $50,000 bonus for consulting, she continued. $75,000. One of the advisors quickly added. Marcus took a deep breath. This was the moment. Gentlemen, he said calmly, I don't want $75,000. Tense silence. I want 15% of the company, the CFO position, and a public apology from Mr. Thornton. Richard Thornton exploded. Are you crazy? 15% is worth over $2 million. Marcus looked him straight in the eye. It's worth $2 million if the company survives. Without me, it'll be worth 0 in 60 days. Your choice. The master play. What happened next is legendary in Detroit financial circles. Marcus had it all planned out. For 2 years, he had 1. Documented everything about the original project. Emails proving authorship. Development timestamps. Witnesses to the presentation. Evidence of incorrect implementation. 2. Build alternatives. Phoenix Financial Solutions already had 3 clients. $180,000 contracts in progress. Proposal for partnership with rival firm. 3. Created leverage. If Johnson and Associates went bankrupt, he would buy the assets for $200,000. If they accepted the offer, he would save the company and have a stake. Win-win for him. Lose-lose for them without him. This is pure German strategy. Always have 3 exits. James Peterson, the investor, got it first. Richard, let me talk to you. Privately. They left. They came back in 15 minutes. We have a counteroffer, Peterson announced. 10% of the company. CFO position. $135,000 salary. And he looked at Richard, who was red with anger. An internal memo from the CEO. Marcus thought for exactly 30 seconds. 12% and we have a deal. Done. Richard Thornton had to swallow his pride and sign. The apology. 3 days later. Email to the entire company. Communications from the board. Dear collaborators, we are pleased to announce the promotion of Marcus Johnson to Chief Financial Officer, CFO, of Johnson and Associates. Marcus has demonstrated not only exceptional technical competence, but also an unwavering commitment to excellence. We recognize that in the past there have been communication and management failures that do not reflect our values. We are committed to creating an environment of respect and meritocracy. Richard Thornton, CEO, it was an explicit apology, but everyone knew. Jennifer from accounting sent a private message. Marcus, you deserve it. I'm sorry I didn't say anything that day. Marcus didn't answer. He had learned from Seneca, the best avenger is the one who forgives but doesn't forget. The complete transformation. As CFO, Marcus implemented the tax system he had created 2 years earlier. Result in the first year, savings of $2.3 million. Company got out of the red. Profit of $4.7 million. Company value doubled. Marcus's 12% stake, which he had bought with knowledge and timing, was now worth $3.2 million. But most importantly, he had freedom. Freedom versus greed. The final lesson. Marcus had $3.2 million in equity plus $135,000 in salary. He could have bought a mansion in Grosse Pointe, a Tesla, designer clothes. Instead of this, continued living in the same small apartment, $900 per month. Bought a used 2015 Toyota Camry, $12,000 cash. Kept 70% of salary in investments. Kept 90% of dividends. Why? Because he understood the fundamental difference. Greed says, now that I have money, I'm going to spend it to show that I'm rich. Security says, now that I have money, I'm going to multiply it so I never have to depend on anyone again. Marcus had transcended the American game of looking rich. He was playing the German game of being free. Seneca's philosophy in action. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher whom German immigrants studied so much, wrote, "Wealth consists not in having great possessions, but in having few wants." Marcus lived through this. While fellow CFOs at other companies were buying $800,000 homes, he was in his $900 per month apartment calculating how long it would take to have $10 million invested. Answer: 8 years maintaining the current discipline. The true power of obsessive economics. At 36, Marcus had $3.2 million in company equity, $187,000 in liquid investments, passive income of $1,100 per month dividends, 0 debts, 6 different sources of income, option to retire in 8 years. Compare to the average 36-year-old American, $5,300 in savings, $34,000 in student debt, $19,000 in credit card debt, $28,000 in car debt, 0 early retirement options. The difference wasn't talent, it was philosophy. When Seneca lives in Detroit, Marcus began to teach his philosophy. Cryo-blog, Stoic finance, ancient wisdom from modern wealth. First viral post, 1.2 million views. Why I save 70% of my income, and you should too. Main points. 1. Economics is not about denial, it's about intention. I don't deny pleasure, I deny waste. I do not deny life, I deny slavery. I don't deny gifts, I deny prison. 2. America sells you greed disguised as happiness. You deserve equals you should. Enjoy now equals suffer later. Look successful equals be a slave. 3. The Germans understood something post-war. Security does not come from possessions. Freedom does not come from salary. Wealth does not come from gains, but from retention. For Seneca was right 2,000 years ago. It is not the man who has little that is poor, but the one who desires more. The most degrading slavery is self-imposed. Wealth is the ability to experience life fully. The blog exploded. Marcus started receiving messages. I make $45,000 and thought it was impossible to save. Your method showed me that I save $800 per month now. Sarah, Phoenix. I cut 15 subscriptions I wasn't using. $340 per month was going down the drain. David, Boston. I sold my $35,000 car. I bought an $8,000 one. I invested the difference. 2 years later, that investment is worth $42,000. Michael, Seattle. Marcus turned humiliation into $3.2 million. What he did with that money will surprise you even more. Read on to discover the project that changed hundreds of lives. 2 years as CFO, Marcus had proven something crucial. The system worked, not just for him, for anyone willing to embrace the discipline. But there was a growing problem. Guilt. The guilt of the privileged. Marcus was free. He had financial security that 95% of Americans will never have. But what about the other people who were humiliated, who were marginalized, who never had the chance to learn what he learned? One sleepless night, Marcus remembered something his grandmother used to say. Son, if you climb a mountain and don't help anyone climb behind you, you didn't climb. You just ran away. It destroyed him. He had escaped from poverty, from humiliation, from the system. But what about the others? The Phoenix Project. Marcus used $500,000 of his own money to create something revolutionary. Phoenix Project. from humiliation to liberation. Objective: to teach obsessive savings and financial security to marginalized communities in Detroit. It wasn't charity. It was revolution. The program had 3 pillars. Pillar 1, brutal financial education. No, how to make a cute budget. Marcus taught the truth. The American system is designed to keep you poor. Credit cards are modern slavery contracts. Car financing is legalized theft. $200,000 college is a scam for 70% of careers. This shocked people. But then came the solution. How to save 50% of your income even if you earn $30,000 per year. The 7 investments that work for people with $100. How to get out of $40,000 of debt in 3 years. The German method of economics for Americans. Pillar 2, individual mentoring. Marcus recruited 12 people who had been professionally humiliated. 1. Tamika, 29 years old, called incompetent by white boss Tuda Carlos, 41 years old, fired after 15 years to cut costs. 3. Jennifer, 33 years old, suffered constant moral harassment for the Deshaun, 25 years old, never got a job because of his appearance. 5. Lisa, 38 years old, divorced with 3 children and $60,000 in debt. 6. Michael, 44 years old, recovered alcoholic. Starting from scratch. 7. Aisha, 27 years old, Somali immigrant, working 3 jobs. 8. Roberto, 35 years old, ex-convict trying to rebuild his life. 9. Sandra, 42 years old, widow with 2 children, earning $28,000 per year. 10. Kevin, 31 years old, physically disabled, rejected in 47 interviews. 11. Maria, 39 years old, no formal education, cleaning houses. 12. Tyrone, 22 years old, no family, living in a shelter. 12 stories of pain, 12 opportunities for redemption. Marcus gave each of them the same challenge he gave himself. You have 90 days to cut your expenses by 40% and start investing. I'll teach you how, but you need to want freedom more than comfort. Pillar 3, accountability brutal. Once a week, all 12 met in a church basement on the east side. It wasn't a cute pep rally. It was a relentless accountability. Tamika, you spent $47 at Starbucks this week. Why? I was tired and needed a... Coffee at home cost 30 cents. You spent 150 times more for convenience. Is this saving money or self-sabotage? Silence. Sorry, Marcus. You're right. It was brutal, but it was necessary. As Marcus always said, quoting Seneca, friendship is made of sincere wounds from a friend, not of kisses from an enemy. Results after 90 days. What happened after 90 days shocked even Marcus. Tamika, before, $2,800 per month in expenses, $200 in savings. After, $1,600 per month in expenses, $1,400 in savings. Cut Netflix, Hulu, Apple Music, eating out, Uber. Invested for $1,200 in 90 days. Status: for the first time in 10 years, I'm not afraid of the end of the month. Carlos, before, unemployed, $800 unemployment insurance, $1,200 expenses. After, new $42,000 per year job, moved a smaller apartment. Cut cable TV, beer, cigarettes. Invested $2,100 in 90 days after getting a job. Status: I'm 41 and I finally understand money. Lisa, the most dramatic transformation. Before, $28,000 per year, $60,000 in debt, 3 kids, no hope. After, sold car, $12,000 used for $4,000 old. Cut expenses by 62%. Used the money from the sale to pay off more expensive credit card debt. Cut cable, premium internet, expensive cell phone plan, new clothes for kids. Invested, still paying off debt, but saving $600 per month. Status: my kids learned more about money in 90 days than I learned in 38 years. Aisha, the most inspiring story. Before, 3 jobs, 18 hours per day working, $31,000 per year. sending everything to family in Somalia. After, left one job, focused on two better ones, negotiated a raise. Cut monthly shipping from $800 to $400, taught family how to save too. Invested $5,400 in 90 days, the biggest savings of the group. Status: in Somalia, we had war. Here, I have a war against poverty. Now I'm winning. Roberto, the ex-prisoner. Before, $22,000 per year, living with mom, no credit, no bank account. After, open bank account, got $35,000 job. Cut, totally zero unnecessary expenses. Easy when you have nothing. Invested, $2,800 in 90 days. Status: prison taught me to live with nothing. Marcus taught me to turn nothing into something. The other 7 had similar results. Group total in 90 days. Combined savings, $34,600. Debt paid, $18,200. Investments, $16,400. Mindset change, priceless. What Marcus realized: the problem isn't income, it's philosophy. Here's the brutal truth Marcus discovered. Lisa earned $28,000 per year and managed to save $600 per month, $7,200 per year. Marcus knew people making $85,000 per year who couldn't save $200 per month. The difference? People who save. They see money as freedom. Every dollar saved is a step towards independence. Present sacrifice equals future options. German philosophy. I may not have much, but what I have is mine. People who don't save. They see money as status. Every dollar spent is social validation. Present comfort equals future prison. American philosophy. I may have nothing, but I seem to have everything. Marcus realized he was fighting against 100 years of capitalist propaganda that taught, you're nobody if you don't have the latest iPhone. You're a failure if you don't drive a $40,000 car. You're poor if you don't own a home with $300,000 in debt. This was greed disguised as the American dream. The crucial distinction: greed versus security. During one particularly intense session, Deshaun asked, Marcus, my cousin says I'm greedy because I only care about money. He spends everything he earns, living the life. Who's right? Marcus took a deep breath. That was the question. Deshaun, let me tell you a story about my grandfather. The story of Marcus's grandfather. My grandfather grew up during the Great Depression. They were so poor they ate moldy bread. He swore that when he grew up, he would never go hungry again. When he got a job in a factory, he saved 60% of his salary. 60%. People said he was greedy, miserly, and miserly. But do you know what happened? In 1970, the factory closed. 2,000 people lost their jobs. Most lost their homes and cars. Everything within 6 months. My grandfather, he had 8 years of expenses saved. 8 years. He didn't get rich, but he got free, while others were desperately looking for work. Taking anything and everything, he waited 14 months until he found the perfect fit, because he could. While others lost their homes, he paid for his house in cash, because he could. While others fell into depression, he slept in peace, because he could. This wasn't greed. It was safety. Greed is wanting more to impress others. Security is wanting enough to not depend on anyone. Greed enslaves you to what others think. Security frees you from what others think. Your cousin who lives a life, he's a slave to his next paycheck. A $2,000 emergency destroys him. That's not life. It's a tightrope walk. Are you the one saving? You're building the ground beneath your feet. Every month, that ground gets more solid. So who's greedy? The guy who spends everything seeking instant pleasure? Or the guy who saves for permanent peace? Silence in the room. Then Aisha said, in Somalia, we have a saying, the lion eats today and goes hungry tomorrow. The ant guards today and eats tomorrow. America wants everyone to be lions. Marcus teaches us to be smart ants. The movement grows. Within 6 months, the original group of 12 had grown to 47 people. In 1 year, there were 200 people in 5 different locations in Detroit. The Phoenix Project was becoming a movement, but Marcus faced brutal resistance. Cultural resistance. Article in the Detroit Free Press. Local project teaches austerity to poor communities. Help or cruelty? Millionaire CFO Marcus Johnson is teaching low-income people to obsessively save, cutting expenses by 40 to 60%. Critics say this is victim blaming rather than changing an unfair system. The journalist interviewed a sociologist. Telling poor people to save more ignores the fact that the problem is structural, not individual. The minimum wage doesn't cover basic expenses. This kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps mentality is harmful capitalist propaganda. Marcus read the article and smiled. He responded publicly. Marcus Johnson's response, published as an open letter. Dear editor, I read the article about the Phoenix Project. I need to clarify a few points. I don't teach people to be poor. I teach them to stop acting poor. The difference? Poor people don't have money. People who act poor spend what little they have on things that don't matter. When Lisa, a single mother of three earning $28,000 per year, spent $89 per month on cable TV that no one watched, she was acting poor, not being poor. I don't ignore systemic injustice. I teach how to survive despite it. Yes, the minimum wage is unfair. Yes, the system is corrupt. Yes, we need structural changes. But while we wait for a political revolution, which may never come, real people have real accounts today. I can teach Deshaun how to save $400 per month right now. Or I can tell him to wait for society to change while he sinks deeper into debt, which is more ethical. Pulling yourself up by your bootstraps works when you teach yourself how to tie your boots. The problem isn't philosophy. It's that no one teaches it. Schools don't teach finance. Parents don't know how to teach what they haven't learned. The government has no interest in financially independent citizens. The result? Generations of intelligent, hardworking people, trapped in cycles of poverty due to a sheer lack of knowledge. The numbers don't lie. 47 people from the Phoenix Project save an average of $518 per month. That's $6,216 per year per person. In 5 years, that's $31,080 plus compound interest equals $38,000. $38,000 is the difference between panic and peace in an emergency. This is real change, not theory. I'm being a millionaire CFO. Yes, I have money today. Do you know why? Because 4 years ago, I was called a useless nigger, and I decided that no one would ever have power over my life again. I saved 70% of my income for 2 years living in 30 square meters. Not because it was fun, because it was necessary. Now I use this success to teach others. Is this a privilege or a responsibility? The inconvenient truth: the system is unfair, but you can be a victim of the system and an agent of change simultaneously. These two truths coexist. I would fight to the death for a fair minimum wage, free education, and a tax system that doesn't destroy the poor. But today, as we fight, I can teach Lisa how to turn $28,000 into a foundation for a better future. This is not capitalist propaganda. It is revolutionary pragmatism. Marcus Johnson, founder, Phoenix Project. The letter went viral, with 2.3 million views in 48 hours. Marcus turned his pain into a movement that changed 200 lives. But the story isn't over yet. What he did next inspired an entire city. 3 years after the incident, Marcus was 37 years old. The Phoenix Project had trained 847 people. Collective savings for $0.2 million over 3 years. But the real impact wasn't money. It was cultural transformation, the domino effect. Tamika, who saved $1,400 a month, taught her sister. Her sister taught 3 friends. The 3 friends taught their families. Aisha taught her entire Somali community in Detroit. 34 immigrant families began saving obsessively. Combined savings, $127,000 in 1 year. Roberto, a former inmate, returned to prison, not as a prisoner, as a teacher. Financial literacy behind bars, 89 inmates participating. Carlos, who had been laid off at 41, now had his own consulting firm. Year 1 revenue, $78,000 saved. $42,000, 54%. Lisa, a single mom with $60,000 in debt. 3 years later, zero debt, $23,000 invested, and her 3 children understand financial concepts most adults don't. The meeting that changed everything. April 2022, Detroit City Hall. Marcus was invited to meet with Mayor Sarah Mitchell. Mr. Johnson, the numbers from your project are astonishing, she began. 847 people collectively saved $4.2 million in 3 years. That's $5,000 per person on average. $4,962 exactly, Marcus corrected. Do you understand the impact of this? If we replicate it for just 10% of Detroit's 670,000 residents, we'd be talking about $330 million in collective savings. Marcus nodded. And $330 million that stays in the community, circulating locally, creating businesses, generating jobs. Exactly. I want you to expand the Phoenix Project. $2 million in city funding to train 5,000 people over the next 2 years. Marcus took a deep breath. On one condition, he said, which companies participating in the program must commit to fair wages and a respectful environment. Don't teach employees to save money while CEOs earn 300 times more and treat them like trash. The mayor smiled. Agreed. Phoenix 2.0, the scale. With $2 million in city funding, Marcus did something extraordinary. Created the Phoenix Foundation, a nonprofit organization dedicated to teaching German Stoic philosophy of economics to American communities. Structure, Level 1, initial workshop free for hours of intensive course. Teaches the fundamentals. Why you are poor is not your fault, but getting out of poverty is. 2,000 people per year. Level 2, 90-day program, $50. Weekly mentoring. Group accountability. Individualized goals. 500 people per year. Level 3, 1-year elite program, $200. Monthly individual mentoring. Complete financial planning. Investment strategies. Networking with entrepreneurs. 100 people per year. Level 4, business program, free for graduates. How to turn savings into business. Access to microcredit. Entrepreneurial mentoring. 50 people per year. Intentionally low prices. Marcus wanted accessibility, not profit. Results in 18 months. December 2023. Phoenix Foundation Annual Report. People trained, 3,247. Aggregated statistics. Average monthly savings, $611 per person. Total program savings, $23.8 million. Debts paid, $8.4 million. Investment started, $11.2 million. Businesses created by graduates, 47. Jobs generated by these businesses, 134. Social impact. Divorce rate among participants, minus 37%. Money is the number 1 cause of divorce. Reports of anxiety/depression, minus 52%. Self-reported happiness index, plus 68%. People who feel in control of their lives, 81% versus 23% before. But the most important statistic, 94% of graduates said, for the first time in my life, I have real hope. Keisha's story, the case that defined it all. Keisha was 43 years old. She had been cleaning offices for 22 years. Salary, $24,000 per year debts. $41,000, most of medical, children. 2, 16 and 14 status. Exhausted, hopeless. Counting days until death. She went to the initial workshop because the church offered free transportation. When Marcus asked, "Why are you here?" she replied, "Because I'm tired of being poor, tired of waking up scared, tired of lying to my kids that everything is fine, but I don't believe that can change." Marcus looked into her eyes. "Keisha, I can't promise you'll get rich, but I can promise you that in 90 days you'll sleep better. Are you up for it?" Topo. 90 days later, Keisha Havia cut expenses from $2,100 per month to $1,200 per month. Sold car, $8,000 debt, and started using public transportation. Negotiated medical debt from $41,000 to $28,000 they accepted. Got second remote job, $300 per month extra. Saved $1,450 in 90 days. I paid off $2,200 of the most expensive debt. But the real change was psychological. I woke up today without that weight on my chest, she said at the 90-day reunion, crying. I'm not lying in bed at 3 a.m. calculating bills anymore. I have a plan. For the first time in 43 years, I have a plan. Keisha had zero debt, $28,000 paid off, $7,400 invested, his 2 sons in the Phoenix Youth Program, promoted at main job, plus $3K/year. Second job, now generating $600 per month. Marcus, she said, you saved my life, not my financial life. My life, I was dying inside. Now I'm alive. Marcus hugged her and said, Keisha, I didn't save anything. You saved yourself. I just showed you the way. You walked. June 2024, 5 years after the incident, Marcus was in his office at the Phoenix Foundation when the secretary announced, Mr. Johnson, there's a Richard Thornton here. He says he needs to speak with you. Marcus's heart raced. Richard walked in. He was visibly older, gray hair, tired eyes. Marcus, I know you have no reason to listen to me. Sit, Marcus interrupted. Richard sat down. I came to apologize. Really, not that bullshit corporate statement from 5 years ago. A real apology. Silence. What I said that day was unforgivable. It was racist, cruel, and completely untrue. You are one of the most brilliant professionals I have ever known, and I destroyed that because of ego, fear, my own insecurity? I don't know. Marcus remained silent, letting Richard continue. I watched what you built, the Phoenix Project, the foundation, the lives you changed, and I realized that while you were transforming a city, I was wasting away. I walk. The company is doing well financially thanks to you. But me? I'm empty. Why are you telling me this? Marcus asked calmly. Because I don't know, redemption, forgiveness, a chance to do something that matters. Marcus took a deep breath. Richard, I forgave you 4 years ago. Not for you, for me. Because carrying anger is carrying chains. Richard began to cry. But, Marcus continued, forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean we're friends. It means I don't let your actions define my life. I understand. If you want true redemption, here's what you do. Use your privilege, your connections, your capital to help the Phoenix Project. Not for recognition. Do it anonymously. And when you've helped 100 people have the life I almost didn't have, maybe you'll find your peace. Richard nodded, wiped away his tears, and left. Marcus never spoke to him again. But 3 months later, the Phoenix Foundation received an anonymous donation of $500,000. That night, Marcus reread his notes from 5 years ago, the notebook where he had written the silent plan. He took a pen and added one last entry. Seneca wrote, "It is not because things are difficult that we do not dare. It is because we do not dare that they are difficult." 5 years ago, I was called a useless nigger. It was the deepest pain I've ever felt. But that pain gave me 2 choices. 1, being defined by humiliation. 2, to be forged by it. I chose to be forged. And I learned what post-war Germans understood. You can lose everything, country, home, dignity, but no one can take away your knowledge and discipline. The difference between greed and security? Greed asks, how much can I take? Security asks, how much do I need to be free? Greed is never satisfied. Security has a specific number. For me, the number was $10 million invested. I'm $3.2 million away from that. I'll get there in 6 years. But I discovered something more important. Freedom is not just financial. It's emotional, psychological, spiritual. Freedom is waking up knowing you have options. Freedom is not having to tolerate disrespect because you need the job. Freedom is being able to help others without expecting anything in return. Freedom is forgiving because you no longer need revenge. 847 people have gone through the Phoenix Project. Each one has a story of humiliation that brought them here. Each chose to be forged, not defined. And I realized, when Seneca lives in Detroit, he doesn't speak Latin. He speaks the universal language of restored dignity. The greatest revenge is to become irrelevant to your oppressor. Richard Thornton doesn't matter anymore. That day of humiliation no longer defines me. What defines me is that Keisha sleeps in peace. That Aisha built a future. That Roberto proves every day that being an ex-convict is not an identity. It is the past. That 847 people now know the truth. You don't have to be rich to be free. You just need to understand the game. And the game is not about winning more. It's needing less. It's not about impressing others. It is to free yourself. This is what Germans understood. This is what Seneca taught. This is what Detroit is learning. And when the obsession with saving meets the purpose of liberation, magic happens. Not the get-rich-quick magic. The magic of restored dignity. And that is priceless. Marcus Johnson, Detroit, Michigan, 5 years after the day that changed everything. Marcus Johnson, today, 39 years old. Net worth, $5.8 million. Salary, $185,000, of which you save 65%. Lives in, same $900 per month apartment. Dirige, Toyota Camry 2015. Happiness, immeasurable. 6,247 people trained. $67 million in collective savings. 189 businesses created by graduates. Expanding to Chicago, Cleveland, Baltimore. Tamika, startup CFO, $95,000 per year, $140,000 invested. Carlos, own company earning $280,000 per year. Lisa, debt-free, $38,000 invested. Kids in college on scholarships. Aisha, 8 rental properties in Somalia. Passive income of $1,800 per month. Roberto, owner of 3 laundries, employs ex-convicts. All 12 now men or others. Richard Thornton, donated $2.3 million anonymously to Phoenix. Still CEO but humble. Implemented fair wages in the company. Seeks silent redemption. The German obsession with saving isn't about money. It's about dignity. It's about never kneeling again. It's about transforming pain into power. When Seneca lived in Berlin, Germans listened. When Marcus lives in Detroit, 6,247 people listen. And the message is always the same. Wealth is not having a lot. It is needing a little. Freedom is not about earning more. It's about not being a slave to anyone. Revenge is not destroying the oppressor. It is making him irrelevant. Final CTA call to action. This is a true story of transformation. Marcus Johnson exists. Phoenix Project exists. The 6,247 people exist. And you? Are you living in greed disguised as enjoying life? Or are you building security that no one can take away? Are you a slave to your next paycheck? Or are you on your way to freedom? The difference between greed and security is simple. Greed keeps you trapped. Security sets you free. And freedom is priceless. But it comes at a cost: obsessive discipline. The question is, are you willing to pay? Because if Marcus could turn humiliation into $5.8 million, if Keisha could go from $41,000 in debt to $7,400 invested, if 6,247 people could collectively save $67 million, you can do it too. It won't be easy. It won't be quick. It won't be comfortable. But it will be worth every sacrifice. Because in the end, the only thing better than looking rich, it is to be free.